Hi, everyone. Bill Duvendack here with the April 2024 monthly astrological preview video. So get cozy, grab a cuppa, and let's talk about April because things are about to get wild. So, first of all, before we start with April, let's backtrack to the night of March 24th or March 25th during the day where you are on the planet, because that was the full moon. Now, what sets this full moon apart is that it was an eclipse. And it is an eclipse that starts off not only the new astrological year, but also eclipse season. The next eclipse has been getting plenty of media exposure. It's the eclipse on April 8th that's running through a large part of North America, predominantly the United States. And it is forecasted that there is going to be a lot that happens from that eclipse. I and other astrologers have been talking about this for quite some time, and we can make forecasts, some make predictions, but at the end of the day, we're really not going to know how it plays out for about another year, year and a quarter or so. But the one thing we know for sure is that there are going to be widespread changes. So we have this eclipse on the 25th that starts off with the emphasis on being at a crossroads, moving from the past into the future. It's also all about diplomacy and emotionally and spiritually growing up. But it is at the expense of your creativity. So what I mean here is that the big message with Saturn and Venus conjunct Pisces is that of emotionally and spiritually maturing and growing, but also, see the cadence? It's slow, like Saturn. Emotionally grow, spiritually grow. These things take time. So restrictions on your creativity, but all in the name of slowing you down. If you do that, you may find success in the physical world is bigger than you expected. So in other words, this is a time to put aside the creativity and the emotional focus that you have, roll up your sleeves and get to work to lay the seeds for where you plan on 2024 going. So we have that eclipse on the 24th or the 25th. Then on the 31st of March, which by the way is the birth celebration of the religion of spiritualism, Mercury retrogrades in Aries. So we have the eclipse on the 25th, the first eclipse of the year, the first full moon of the year. We have the first substantial planet retrograding, which is Mercury, the first planet closest to our sun in the solar system. So all of this energy is focused on first. We also have a number of planets in Aries. Where I'm going with this is that all of the emphasis is on moving forward, but you're getting the reminder that sometimes if you want something different, you have to do something different, regardless of how much it emotionally hurts. Also, at this time, it's good to grow up spiritually. For example, many people get hung up on, time is an illusion. And when you're first starting your spiritual growth, that's 100% right. You should be excited about learning that. It is 100% true. I completely agree. But you know what? We live in a physical world. There's time here. So you could say cerebrally and energetically it doesn't exist, but the fact that we're all going to die at an older age than we were when we were born means the time does exist. So the basic spiritual teaching, time doesn't exist, is one thing. The advanced, mature spiritually thought is that time does exist. It's just relegated to the physical plane, but once you move away from the physical plane, time ceases to exist. You can have two opposing ideas like this in your head at once. And that's pre-April. March 31st, April 1st, Mercury stations retrograde. Watch for classic retrograde things to happen, such as miscommunications leading to arguments, making rash decisions that work against you. This also means Mercury is going to retrograde for this year in fire signs. So if you have a lot of fire energy in your chart, buckle up. It's going to be fun. So this is happening in Aries, which also means that if you have a lot of Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, or Aries in your chart, it's going to hit you very, very hard. For those that have a lot of Aries activity, it means that the ramifications of this retrograde period could influence all of your life, not just particular areas. This retrograde period is going to last until April 26th. So it's basically the month of April. And when you factor in the two eclipses that I mentioned previously, it shows that this month is going to be a roller coaster. Now, the good news is it's not an up and down roller coaster. Through the first third of the month or so, it's going to be pretty easy flowing. It's going to be smooth sailing. Then right around the 9th, 10th, 11th, right after the eclipse, things get a little rocky. They quiet down for the next week or so after that, but then the month ends with a lot of stress and tension in the chart. If you wanted something smooth to start your year off flat, you already had that with February and March. So if those weren't smooth for you, I don't know what to tell you. It's only going to get more active. If those were smooth for you, now you have time to prepare for what's coming up. Also on April 1st, in addition to Mercury retrograding, we have the moon in Capricorn sextiling a Saturn-Mars conjunction in Pisces. Both Saturn and Capricorn correspond to doing what's mature and responsible rather than immature and tantrum throwing. And the Mars influence is quite interesting. In traditional astrology, Saturn and Mars are known as malefics. So with the moon in Capricorn, it's telling us your dark side might be calling you to take a course of action or a line of thought that does not work out for your greatest growth and good. For those of you that have been doing shadow work, this is when you will be tempted by such ideas. The way to combat them when they show up is to simply close down emotionally and keep moving ahead. In other words, put your attention elsewhere. Put your attention on the career, the occupation, your health, your diet, things you can control that will help extend your life and improve its quality. Now, obviously, as a part of that, we've got Mars conjunct Saturn in Pisces. This is a good month to work with the divine masculine, whatever name you know them by. Mars is the young warrior energy, and Saturn is the sage energy. So it's a good time to bring these pieces into harmony with you. However, for Pisces, as we have been feeling for a long time now, the stress and the tension are still going to be present. So emotionally and spiritually, you can expect the restrictions and feeling out of sorts to continue for most of this month. That Mars-Saturn conjunction is in play until the 18th. So for about 3 weeks, starting at the end of March and going to the 18th, we've got a Mars-Saturn conjunction that is going to be affecting everybody, but particularly mutable signs, Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. We also have Venus conjunct Neptune in Pisces to begin the month on the 1st. That will be in play until the 7th. So what this means is this first week, even though your creativity might be running high, your fantasy life might be running high, all of those creative things might be really pulling at your heartstrings to interact with them. The short answer with Mars and Saturn present is that it's okay to interact with them in small doses. Make sure what you're doing has a point. Don't do it just for the sake of escapism or frivolity. Also, on that day, we've got the north node of the moon conjunct Chiron in Aries. So it's a good day to face your wounds, face your limits, and understand that through the healing process, you are creating spiritual and personal growth. And we also have Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus. The first sets the stage because Saturn conjunct Mars will be happening until the 18th. Venus conjunct Neptune until the 7th. The North Node and Chiron being conjunct continues for most of the month, and Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus continues most of the month. I paint this picture because the majority of these planets are outer planets, and therefore they move slower. So when we talk about these aspects, they take weeks, if not months, to play out. The Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus aspect is quite interesting because it's saying just because something unexpected happens in your daily life does not necessarily mean it's bad. Sometimes it can lead to an increased understanding of something. Sometimes it can lead to prosperity. Sometimes it can lead to being led to where you need to go for your greatest growth and good. So when the unexpected happens in daily life, before emotionally reacting, assess and see what you can get out of it and what the actual lesson is, regardless of what your ego thinks the lesson is. On the second, that moon in Capricorn is trining that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus. So it shifts our attention from the existential and the cerebral to the physical world. So starting on the second and continuing for a few days, it's a good time to just get to work. Whether it's your career or your day job or whatever the case may be, it's time to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and march on in the great game of life. Also on the side of the moon in Capricorn is sextiling Venus conjunct Neptune in Pisces. Now you can pick up the artistic tools you set down on the first. Just do it for the day. Don't make it a new habit. And I say this not because I'm telling you what to do, but because the moon in Capricorn is saying make sure your creativity, make sure your romance, make sure your heart intelligence all have a purpose. Figure out how to apply them to achieve better relationships with others and a better sense of self-expression in the world today. Also on the second, the moon in Capricorn is squaring Chiron in Aries. On one hand, this says your stubbornness might prevent you from seeing what wounds you need to heal. On the other hand, it's saying that a lot of your inner wounds can be settled by making the mature, wise decisions rather than what feels good at the time or making things more cerebral than they really are. The moon in Capricorn is also squaring that Mercury retrograde in Aries. So the more you focus on overall themes in your life, the more you might find lots of little things come up that need to be addressed. And that's quite all right. The devil, or God, depending on who you believe, is in the details after all. On the third, the moon in Aquarius is conjunct Pluto. So it's a good time to reassess your circles of friends. It's a good time to reassess your social life and make changes when necessary. Also on the third, the sun in Aries is conjunct the North Node. So if you had to pick the day for meditation during the month, it would be the third. Now really with Venus conjunct Neptune until the 7th, you've got the whole week. But on the third, with the sun conjunct the North Node, it tells us that the information you would receive from meditation is all about how to go forward. On the 4th, we have Venus entering into Aries. Venus and Aries is an interesting combination because it's all about instant gratification. It's all about passion. It's all about spending money quickly and then realizing you shouldn't have done that. It's all about having a flash of insight for a creative project, and as soon as you put pen to paper, you lost that train of thought. So things are fast acting. Now, also on the 4th, the moon in Aquarius is sextiling the sun, which is still conjunct the North Node of the moon in Aries. This tells us it's a good time to work on themes of being self-actualized. Whether it is personal responsibility, personal accountability, realizing that if you don't put the work in, nobody's going to do it for you, that there is no savior, you have to save yourself. Whatever lines of thought related to those may be, it's going to be easier to work with those and integrate those on the 4th. We've also got the moon in Aquarius sextiling Chiron in Aries. So it's a good time to emotionally detach. Emotional detachment is also a trait of the moon in Capricorn. So for the first 5 days of the month, it's all about staying emotionally detached. It doesn't mean you can't have strong emotions. It just means you do the emotions. You don't let the emotions do you. We have the moon in Aquarius squaring Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus on the 4th. So if you're not careful, your lack of enthusiasm or your emotional detachment may prevent you from achieving expansion in the physical world. It may prevent you from being open to the unexpected that's going to come your way. And finally, we have that Venus, which just moved into Aries, sextiling Pluto in Aquarius, and that's going to be in play for about 5 days until the 9th. This tells us that just like the 3rd was a good time to reassess and reevaluate your social circles and groups of friends, now on the 4th, it's all about figuring out what your new social paradigm should be. The 5th is nice and quiet, so nothing to report there. The 6th has the moon in Pisces conjunct that Saturn-Mars conjunction in Pisces. This might be too much of a good thing. On this day, if you've got addiction problems, I encourage you to just be aware that they may rear their head more than normal on that day. If you make impulsive decisions when it comes to your emotions and your spirituality, this is going to be a day that tests it. So it may be too much of a good thing. Now, the trade-off is if you work with the higher vibrational side of this conjunction, it means this is a good day to contact the divine masculine. This is a good day to receive mysticism and wisdom and gnosis from your guides and other spirits you might work with. The moon in Pisces on that day is also sextiling Jupiter, which is conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So it's a good day to let your psychic skills dictate where your energy goes and why. It's also a good day to see the lessons that everyday life brings you and how you can put them to your own goals. And finally, the moon is conjunct Neptune, which emphasizes what I just said about the possibility of addictions or toxic escape traits. But it also means that whole day, the 6th, is real good for meditation. It's real good for ritual work. On the 7th, the moon in Aries is conjunct Venus in Aries. So on the higher vibrational side of things, it's all about indulging in your passions with your loved ones. On the lower side of things, it's saying be careful with your romantic relationships. A flippant word might negatively hurt them. Or don't be surprised if something you thought was going to pan out very well turns out to be a flash in the pan and you're left holding ashes. And both of those, and the Moon-Venus conjunction in Aries, are sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. So now we have the next leg of the plan of development here when it comes to your social circles. Now that you saw what needed to change, now that you see what you want it to become, now on the 7th and the 8th, because of the eclipse, and the 9th and the 10th, and going forward the rest of the month, it's time to put those changes in action. For example, there have been many times I've met with people over the years and they talk about not being able to find a loving partner, the kind of relationship they want. And they tell me about all the bars and clubs they've been to. So I ask them, what traits are you looking for in a partner? And they say they want someone intellectual. They want someone that's good with money. They want someone that they connect with on a cerebral level. And the first thing I say is you're not going to find them in the goddamn bar. They're all working. They're at libraries studying. They are going to school. So the moral of the story is, if you want something, you have to put yourself in that thought form, in that environment in order to achieve it. You can't expect it to come to you without you paving the way for it. And on the 8th, the eclipse. The big eclipse. It's the new moon. Eclipses distort energies, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And on this day, there's 6 planets in Aries. If you have your sun sign, moon sign, or ascendant in the sign of Aries, this eclipse could potentially change your life. It could either draw you back to things that you have not dealt with, that you need to deal with now. It might throw you off course for a few months, or it might just be saying, if you've been wanting to make major lifestyle changes, now is the time to do it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the eclipse because you can find it in major news outlets and hobby fan sites of astrologists on the internet. So read what your intuition guides you to and then assess whether it was worth it or not. This eclipse is all about moving forward, leaving the past behind. But while moving forward, understand that things from your past might come up to deal with so you can put a final solution onto them. From the 9th, the moon in Taurus is squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So your quest to stay steady through life may meet with resistance and quirkiness that cause you to change. On the 10th, we've got the moon conjunct Jupiter, conjunct Uranus in Taurus. Indulge, enjoy all things sensual, but know your limits, because this is a day you might fall prone to excess. Now, also on the 10th, we've got the sun conjunct Mercury retrograde in Aries. So, we know what Mercury retrograde means, right? This is the day when it'll hit the hardest, especially if you're one of those cardinal signs or have strong cardinal energy in your chart. If you don't know what cardinal signs are, they are Aries, Cancer, Capricorn, and Libra. We've got that same Saturn conjunct Mars in Pisces that we've been talking about, sextiling the moon conjunct Jupiter, conjunct Uranus. So it's a good day to say, okay, now I see my limits, and now I have a plan on how to move forward within them. Or, okay, I see I'm doing too much in this direction of my life. I need to make changes and start doing more in that direction if I want to achieve success and happiness. On the 11th, the moon in Gemini trines Pluto in Aquarius, so it's a good day for networking. It's a good day for inspiration. It's a good day to formulate plans, not necessarily put them into action, but make them regardless. It's a good day to talk to people that you might consider in your new social circle paradigm. The moon in Gemini is also sextiling Venus in Aries, so it's a good day to have some fun with your loved ones, whether it's frivolous stuff or whatever the case may be, and blow some steam off. Interpret that as you will. On the 12th, we've got that same moon in Gemini. See how it's hanging around for a while? Squaring Saturn conjunct Mars in Pisces. I really like this, and I know a lot of people don't, and that makes me like it even more. The moon in Gemini squaring Saturn conjunct Mars in Pisces means that if you don't watch your speech, it's going to work against your own growth, good, and maturity from an emotional and spiritual perspective. So the lesson here is to measure your words before you speak, rather than opening your mouth and being as surprised as everyone else what comes out of it. Self-control, maturity, discipline, forethought, all of these mature ideas will be tested on the 12th. So the less you embrace the Gemini side and the more you find the harmony between the power of your words and leading by example, the more success you'll have. Also on the 12th, that moon in Gemini is sextiling the North Node in Aries. So take everything that I just said about the square with the moon in Gemini to Saturn and Mars and put it along with the idea that the more self-control you exercise, the more spiritual growth you can achieve. And the more you can heal. Who'd have thunk it? On the 13th, that moon in Gemini, which just won't go away, is squaring Neptune in Pisces. This actually works in your favor with the moon in Gemini squaring Neptune in Pisces. It's saying today is a good day for your flippant words because you're not being ambiguous. You're shooting from the hip, as people say, but the price you pay for that is you're probably not going to get the wisdom and insight through meditation you would normally get otherwise. The moon in Gemini is also sextiling the sun in Aries, which just emphasizes go out and have fun. Just be responsible with it. And remember, everything in moderation, including moderation. On the 14th, the moon moves into Cancer and is trining that Mars-Saturn conjunction in Pisces. When you have a trine between water signs, especially these two, it tells us this is a good time for new behavior when it comes to how you handle and process your emotions. It's also a good time for spiritual initiation, whether that means joining a spiritual organization or getting initiations from your guides and teachers in spirit. Kind of depends on where you're at in your path. But the 14th is a good day to make those spiritual and emotional changes. The moon in Cancer on that day is squaring Venus in Aries. So it's not necessarily a day that's good for passion, but rather deep soul level connection with your romantic partners. The moon in Cancer on the 14th is also squaring the north node of the moon. So it says, yes, connect with your partners that way. Embrace the home life. Embrace your intuition. But don't get lost into a fog or haze of emotions. Make sure they have a point. On the 15th, that moon in Cancer is trining Neptune in Pisces. So it continues the theme of a day for spiritual initiation and emotional growth. What I like about this, though, is that it's also saying if you've been looking for a sign to start a new meditation practice, this is your sign right around the 15th. This is also a good day where you might find your creativity is stronger than normal. So for those of you that create, put that on your calendar to mark it. Then the moon in Cancer on that day is sextiling the sun in Aries. Isn't that fun? It's an out of sign sextile. What that means is your emotions and your intuition may be on point. Your sense of family and your immediate loved ones are on your mind. And you may be thinking that, I don't want to leave home to do all the stuff and see all the things and talk to all the people. But this aspect on the 15th is saying, no, go ahead and go out. It's not going to go the way you thought it was going to go. It's going to play out differently, and it's going to play out in your favor. We also have that moon in Cancer sextiling the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus, which just reinforces what I just said. I'm not going to blind you with bullshit. Sometimes these aspects support each other. So know that many times if you hear me saying related themes, it just drives the point home. It's nothing new. It's just added weight to what has been discussed before. Also on the 15th, the moon in Cancer is opposing Pluto in Aquarius. I know. It's probably going to be hard to leave the home on the 15th. But you really should. Or if you don't physically leave the home, mentally leave the home. Look for your changed social groups. Look for the new circle of friends you want. And if you want to keep the same circle of friends, that's fine too, but change your relationship to them and your role within that microcosmic group. On the 16th, we've got Venus conjunct the North Node, which is also conjunct Mercury retrograde in Aries. This is an easy one to deal with, because what this means is that when those Mercury retrograde things come up on the 16th, whatever they're telling you is priority number one to focus on for your spiritual and personal growth. Now, also on that day, the moon in Leo is trining Venus in Aries. So if you pay attention to what happens from a Mercury retrograde perspective on that day, you might find you can spin it in your favor with a little creative problem solving. And if you play your cards right, it might enhance your love life, if you want to, along the way. On the 17th, that moon in Leo is trining the same planets as before, on the 15th, or on the 16th. And I point that out because it shows that you're going to have basically 3 days, the 15th, 16th, and 17th, to work with these themes of taking care of yourself, using creative problem solving to address your issues, and also potentially enhancing your intimate relationships, whatever they may be. Now, on the 18th, first of all, happy 16th birthday to my business, 418 Ascendant Esoteric Astrology. Way back in 2008, I started this trip, and now it continues for another year. What I like about the aspects on the 18th is that the moon in Virgo is trining the sun in Aries, which means we have another out of element trine. In short, what this means is you still got a window to move ahead with your projects, but now you're to the stage where you lay down the plan. You're analytical, you're methodical. You take a close look at everything before implementing it in just a few days. On the 19th, that moon in Virgo is opposing Saturn and Mars in Pisces. This is a classic aspect, and the whole lesson of it is put down the creative, put down the spiritual, put down the emotional, and get your ass to work. It's that simple. Now, some of you might be crying when you hear me say that, and that's the next part of the equation, is that moon in Virgo is trining Jupiter, which is still conjunct Uranus and Taurus. So the more that you put down the gentler side of things and focus on the daily work, the more unexpected positive things have a potential of happening to you either now or in the near future. Also on the 19th, the sun moves into Taurus. So we have a shift from all that fiery activity with Aries to the practical, the pragmatic, the physical side of life. On the 20th, we've got that moon in Virgo. See, it continues about as long as the moon in Gemini previously in the month. We get to offset the Gemini with the Virgo. Funny thing is, both planets are ruled by Mercury, which is retrograde the whole time. So when the moon's in Gemini, the moon's in Virgo for an extended period like it is here, expect a spike in the Mercury retrograde instances that you deal with. But on the 20th specifically, that moon in Virgo is opposing Mars, which is conjunct Neptune in Pisces. So it's a good day to continue to focus on the work, not necessarily a good day to look for inspiration, not necessarily a good day for meditation, but definitely a good day to get the lead out. Now on the 20th, Mars, which is a malefic, according to traditional astrology, like I said earlier, is conjunct Neptune, which is also seen as a malefic in Pisces. And while Saturn is still in Pisces, it's not part of this conjunction, but I want to mention it here because it's the third malefic according to traditional astrology. And when you have all three malefics moving through Pisces like this, it is saying that the more spiritually advanced you are, the rougher of a time you're having it right now. It is saying that if you're an artist that has been lacking inspiration, you will find none here. True, there are certain days during the month when inspiration is more possible than other times, but you can tell from watching this video that those days are few and far between. Also, with all three malefics moving through Pisces, it means that Pisces are getting hit the hardest emotionally and spiritually speaking. And then secondarily, the signs that are getting hit the hardest are the other mutable signs. So Gemini, Virgo, and Sagittarius. On the 20th, I mentioned this because this might be a day when you feel it more than other days through the whole month, or you feel it more than you have for the last few ones. And it just so happens to be 420. What you gonna do? How you gonna handle it? I know a lady named Mary Jane that can help you with that. Also, on the 20th, the sun in Taurus is squaring Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto in Aquarius this whole time has been about changing up your social circles, etc., etc. Now with the sun in Taurus squaring it, it's saying today or the next 2 days, the 20th, 21st, it's time to put the friendships aside, or at least indulging in them, and focus on daily work. So in other words, if you have control over your own daily schedule, this is not a day to spend time with friends. This is a good day to put that on the back burner and focus on what you need to do for you to feed yourself and put money in your pocket. On the 21st, that moon moves into Libra and is trining Pluto in Aquarius, which tells us, just like you had to put down indulging in friendships and fun the day before, today, the 21st, specifically in the afternoon and evening, is a good time to get back in touch with them friends. Have some fun in the late afternoon and early evening. Brainstorm with people. If you're one of the mutable signs I mentioned before, good luck with that. But all of you other signs, you can have fun with this. The 22nd brings that moon in Libra opposing Mercury retrograde, which is conjunct the North Node in Aries. And this is kind of tricky because the 22nd has that aspect. The 23rd is the full moon. And the 24th, the energy completely changes. So the 22nd with that moon in Libra opposing Mercury conjunct the North Node is saying, if you try to be the diplomat, it may work against you. If you sit on the fence about subjects, it may work against you. If you are indecisive, it may work against you. And just like I was talking about in my recent full moon blog, which is still up on 418ascendant.com, remember, taking no action and making no choice is still taking action and making a choice. What I'm reminded of with this aspect is that, to paraphrase, staying silent in the times of moral crisis is aligning with the abuser or the oppressor or some shit like that. You all know what I'm talking about. You see it on social media. The 21st, the 22nd, the 23rd are all reminders of that. You can say, well, politics isn't my jam. Then you have no right to bitch if it doesn't go your way later. I use that as a black and a white example. So I encourage you to extrapolate that out to your own life and see where you are not engaged where you should be, and how, if you choose to stay unengaged, it takes away your right to complain because you chose to be part of the problem. On the 23rd, boom, 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 full moon with the sun in Taurus and the moon in Scorpio. So, as we all know, it's a full moon in Taurus. And this one comes with a little bang. So, Mercury retrograde started at the very end of March, the first day of April. Here we are on the 23rd, so there's only a few days left in the Mercury retrograde. And as I've highlighted for the last 3 weeks, there are periods where the Mercury retrograde will ebb and flow and spike and fall. But now with this full moon on the 23rd, Mercury retrograde is going to go out with a bang. On that full moon on the 23rd, we have an aspect pattern called a fixed T-square, which is happening between the sun in Taurus, moon in Scorpio, and Pluto in Aquarius. A fixed T-square is all about challenges. It's all about problems. It's all about feeling pressure and tension and stress and rockiness. There will be no smoothness that day. But it's also saying that if you can handle the pressure, you're going to come out the better for it. And the time period for that is over approximately the next 4 months. So the full moon on the 23rd, you may find challenges exist when it comes to how intense you feel your emotions versus your ability to put them on the shelf and focus on your daily life versus reinventing yourself on a social level. You may also find challenges when it comes to handling your money versus handling shared resources you may have with others, and how you may have to change some of those spending habits in order to achieve the friendship and social success that you desire. On the 24th, Moon in Scorpio is trining Saturn in Pisces. So it is a good day for spiritual initiation. Not so much emotional initiation, but spiritual initiation specifically, especially if you're into ritual magic of some form. On the 24th, we also have Mercury beginning the stationing period where it moves retrograde to direct. So this will be another day of a spike in Mercury retrograde activity and manifestation. On the 25th, that Moon in Scorpio is opposing that Jupiter-Uranus activity in Taurus. This one is kind of tricky because it's basically saying the more you focus, the more you drive, the more you put on blinders to get things done, the more unexpected things will happen during your daily life. And because you're focused, you're not going to see the presence that is brought to you. So you could miss out on some real opportunities if you enter into the 25th with blinders on. Now that Moon in Scorpio is also trining Mars and Neptune in Pisces. Beware of escapism. But also, if you're looking for a day to learn new meditation skills or new energy moving techniques, this is a good time to do it. Whether it's the 24th, 25th, that weekend, I encourage you to explore it. A lot of people are into Reiki, but there's also Barbara Brennan's Hands of Light material, and Montauk Chia's material is out there. So there is no shortage of energy movement techniques, and these 2 days would be good days to focus on learning them. On the 26th, the Moon moves into freedom-loving, truth-speaking, spiritual Sagittarius and sextiles Pluto in Aquarius. So on this day, the last day of the Mercury retrograde, it's a good time to blow off some steam and have some fun with your friends. Whether it's journeying somewhere, whether it's heckling a movie, whether it is gossip, whatever the case may be, feel free to engage those new or revised social circles beginning about the 26th through the beginning of May. We also have the Moon in Sagittarius trining Mercury, which is stationing direct as it is conjunct the north node of the Moon. So it's a good time to focus on your spirituality, not necessarily doing what you've done before, but now it's time to focus on the changes you need to make in light of the recent events of the Mercury retrograde that has occurred for most of the month. On the 27th, that Moon in Sagittarius is trining Chiron in Aries, so it's a good day to return to an idea we have not talked about for a few weeks, which is healing yourself, specifically emotionally and spiritually. On the 28th, that Moon moves back into Capricorn like it was at the beginning of the month, and it trines the Sun in Taurus. So it's a good day to get out of your head. It's a good day to get out of your heart. And it's a good day to get into the physical world, however you define it. Whether it's gardening, whether it's exercise, whether it's diet, whether it's picking up a side hustle, whether it's picking up some overtime hours, whatever the case may be, the 28th brings our attention back to that. And the 29th, right on its heels, says, okay, you've got your head in the right space. Now how do you take that and use it to better your relationship with your spirituality and better your relationship with your emotions and better your relationship with your creativity? So some people will say, well, I'm working so much, I don't have time to create. Okay, well then don't try and create. Just work. Find the joy in working. Find the pleasure in working. Work free without a lust of results. Sometimes you got to roll up the sleeves, get to work, and you don't have time for fun. And that's okay. The point of life is to build a life you don't have to escape from or vacation from. And today, the 29th, is one of those days to see how everything fits together to bring you into a cohesive direction for where you go moving forward. We also have the moon in Capricorn squaring the north node, which is conjunct Mercury, and Venus moves into Taurus. Also on the 29th, we've got the moon in Capricorn trining Jupiter conjunct Uranus in Taurus, and Venus in Taurus squaring Pluto in Gemini. I rattled those off real quick because I want to drive home the point of how the 29th is going to be exceptionally rocky. It's going to be up and down. The more you enter into that day with the attitude of, I'm going to drive this day like I stole this day. Today's the day I'm going to get to work. I'm not going to blow off time with friends. My romantic relationships, if they're worth a shit, are going to have to wait a day or two. That attitude, that mindset is going to carry you successfully, probably through that whole day. Now, if you don't have that mindset, it could be a roller coaster. You might come up on the short end, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And finally, on the 30th, we've got the moon conjunct Neptune in Aquarius, and both are squaring Venus and Taurus. Mars moves into Aries, and the moon is conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, which sextiles Mars in Aries. Without getting too deep into it, with all the Aries, Aquarius, and square activity, it's telling us watch for short tempers on the 30th. Be careful that the people you're spending time with don't piss you off too much. And what I really like about this is the fact that this gives us insight on what to expect for May. The 30th of April basically says there's going to be a lot of challenges. A lot of it is going to have to do with how well you can maintain your composure when you're in social situations you might not like. The 30th is also going to say, hey, watch the spending, watch what you eat, watch your diet, watch your health. It is still a good time to make changes. The sun has moved into Taurus, so new beginnings has not diminished, but rather the emphasis has changed from the fiery, go-getter, aggressive nature of Aries into the steady state, consistent, disciplined, grounded energy of Taurus. And that's where we'll pick it up for May, focusing on the fact that now a lot more planets are moving through Taurus. And whereas when they were Aries, it meant that a lot of adjustments and changes needed to be made, now it means something radically different. And in a lot of ways, radically better. But keep in mind, all of this is happening on the heels of the eclipse on the 8th, so things might not play out like you expect. Simply know, though, that they will play out. So, as we go into April 2024, I encourage you to go into it with an open mind, but focus on doing what's mature. Focus on what you need to do with regards to wisdom. Focus on change. With the Mercury retrograde, we find ourselves at the beginning of the new astrological year focused on change. Mercury comes along and says, okay, it's a new year. You need to address all these things before you change. And through the month of April, as we address those things, we learn about ourselves from seeing ourselves from an outside perspective. Context is everything. Speaking of context is everything, thank you, Adam Knox and the Cult of You, for putting this out there in the platform to reach those that need to hear it. Daily horoscopes will continue on my Facebook, Instagram, X, whatever, Threads, everything that's out there that I'm doing it on already. Monthly sun sign horoscopes will continue as well. Until we chat again, may we all receive blessings of good health, prosperity, and success as we take the opportunity of this upcoming Mercury retrograde to assess where we are, see the changes we need to make, and get out of our own way in order to make the changes. Thank you.